This year, I'm really drawn to all things poinsettia, and I apologize, but there's been a few videos featuring poinsettias. Hi, I'm Karen Burchill of Mixed Media Creations, and today's video, we're not going to do one, we're going to do 3 projects using some lovely poinsettia napkins. So I am working on a 6x6 card base. Now this base comes from the Crafter's Workshop, but you can take mixed media pages from a 9x12 art journal and cut it to size. The napkins you see me using on both projects come from NINNYSNAPKINS.com. Go to the site, do a search for all things poinsettia, and you'll see stamps, stencils, and some beautiful napkins, including these. So this napkin I am cutting to size. There I'm taking it into 4 quadrants because when you unfold it you get 4 of each image, and I've peeled off the excess layers as is typical with all decoupage when you're working with napkins, and now you see me water cutting the excess off. I just use a liner brush and a little bit of water and I work my way around. Now when I started this I was going to make 2 cards using the same napkin and then just varying some of the stuff that went in it. I changed my plan, as you'll see, and ended up making a mixed media piece showcasing what differences I might make from a card to a mixed media base. Now on the gessoed card base, I am mixing unbleached titanium and white gesso, and I'm getting this mottled all over look. Now I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave it white or go kind of a little bit more vintage looking, so I test one out and I compare, and I really prefer the one with the unbleached titanium. Which do you prefer? So now I want to add some interest to my background. So I grab my stamp, and this is ground espresso ink. It's kind of a dark brown, browny black. Now it was a little too vibrant, so I just grabbed some gesso and I put a little bit on top and just knocked back the script so it's not taking over the page. Now this stencil's layered poinsettia from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm not using it as it's intended to be used. I'm using just this one little part of it, and I'm stenciling with straight up unbleached titanium on the somewhat lighter unbleached titanium white gesso background. And this is giving a tone on tone layered look. Remember, we want to build those layers. Now here I'm not adding physical texture, but I'm adding visual texture. So you get that layered look without actual physical layers. So I test out my napkin placement. Do I have enough of this on there? And I'm just adding kind of hints of poinsettias in the background. So once the background is pretty much done, I'm just going to place my napkin. I'm putting some fluid matte medium, a good coat of it underneath. I do half at a time. Then I'm putting some on top, being very careful not to rip the napkin because of course it gets very fragile. And then I go with the other half. Now one thing you'll notice is most of the time the napkin colors get more vibrant. Once completely dry, I use my emery board from the Dollar Tree to cut off the excess. This works so well. And then I'm just adding a little bit of Mod Podge or matte medium to make sure those edges are secure. So now I want to overpaint on top of this. Turn this so it doesn't look so much like I've glued a napkin down into something that looks like has been hand painted. But I'm cheating because I'm using the napkin as the base. So I'm taking the colors. I've got cadmium red, orange, Naples yellow, and some white gesso, and I tested out on the paper to get basically the colors that I see in the napkin. So do a trial test. And then I'm going in and I paint with a little bit of gesso. I pretty much put it in, leaving a slight outline around the petal or leaf that I am painting. So I'm not losing the shape that the napkin designer and artist has given me. I'm using that, but I am changing the color somewhat. So that's the trick here. Put some gesso and the paint, but leave a slight border. And I'm just mixing the colors. Sometimes I have 1 or 2 colors on my brush, and I'm just adding and making this look really painterly. If you don't like what happens or where it's at, let it dry and then come back. Once the acrylic's dry, you can add or change it and modify whatever to get going. Now, it's very daunting when you start over painting. It's like, oh, what if I mess up? Well, what if you do? It's a napkin and you're learning. You're going to figure it out if you do it. The more you do this, the better you're going to get, and the less daunting the whole process becomes. So I am going to speed up the video showing me over painting this, because I want you to see how it all comes together, but I don't want to take a whole lot of your time doing that. I find this very zen. I so thoroughly enjoy over painting. You could skip this step if you prefer, or just add a little. When you're over painting, you can do some of it, all of it, or just very select parts of it. I start with what I know I want to change, and then I make those decisions as I go. So as I said, this is a 6x6 card base, folded card, mixed media card. It takes all the mixed media stuff. I've made a choice to not put texture because if I mail these away, I don't want that extra bulk. So now I'm using the stylus and dotting the center of the poinsettias with yellow, then coming in with some red and some green. And again, I'm mimicking what was already in the napkin. So I'm learning by paying attention to the details of what that artist has done. I'm learning. And I've overpainted the green, but I could have just done the poinsettias. Now I'm grabbing a piece of that unused napkin ply and stamping this sentiment, Choose Joy. It was a stamp that I picked up somewhere along the way, with the ground espresso ink, and then I'm water cutting this. Now the reason I'm stamping on the napkin excess ply is because it's going to go completely translucent and you're going to fail to see it once I glue it down. And I have tons of excess napkin plies, so we were using something to benefit. Then I'm grabbing that ground espresso ink pad and edging the card to frame it. Oh, this turned out so much better than where I thought it was going to go. But everything that's good can be even better with a splatter of gold paint. And there we have the finished card. And because I love this so much, this was kind of like a trial, I decided that I wanted to turn this into a home decor mixed media piece. Now I have these easels that I have done some templates. These are mixed media boards that I've cut to the size of the insert area. And my goal is to have different ones for different seasons, and then I can just pop them out and have different seasonal art displayed on my countertop, on the bathroom, what have you. So I decided I wanted to turn this into a mixed media piece, a home decor piece. So there you see it. It fits perfectly in this frame. Now this easel I got at Dollarama in Canada. They have them periodically in the fall, and I have just painted out the fall theme, so I could do this. So again, I'm starting off with a coat of gesso to prime it. So this piece, for just interest's sake, is 7 by 6 approximately. So it's a little bit bigger than the card base. Now I decide to do stamping first because I remember from the first one that I needed to knock it back. So I thought, okay, I'll skip a step and I'll put the stamping first and then knock it back by the application of the paint. A lot of this part of this mixed media piece I have sped up because you don't need to see it twice. You've already seen me do it. I will slow down on the parts that are new. Now on a mixed media or home decor piece on a wood panel or canvas, I want to add some real texture. So here you see me using thick gesso on a sink liner mark maker, and I'm just globbing that on, and I'm going to stamp on the mixed media board. The white of the white gesso is, I'm going to keep that, so you're going to have that contrast, and then you're going to have the physical texture. Whereas I didn't want that on a card, I do want that mostly when I do canvases, wood panels, home decor piece. I always want to add that physical texture with modeling paste, thickened gesso. Now I like how the design of this sink liner somewhat mirrors the shape of the poinsettia leaves. And that's why I chose it. Because again, you want things that work together. So while I'm not using a poinsettia stencil to show like poinsettias in the background, I am using a stamp that is basically doing the same. Then I'm just gluing this down with fluid matte medium. Now the only thing is, if there's texture underneath, you have to be extra careful because there's more likelihood of it ripping. I'm taking some brown acrylic paint and shading around the edge here to frame it, and it kind of wicking out into the textured parts, which I love. Now I want to bring out that texture a little bit more, so I'm taking some of the brown, my dark brown, and a makeup sponge, and just lightly going over the high points, just to bring out that motif a little bit more. Because now you could do, again, all the textured parts or some. It can be selective. I tend to end up doing an all or nothing kind of approach. Maybe I need to edit myself. This makes for a really vintage looking. Now that script got pushed back a little too much, but I didn't want it too forward, so I'm using a mixture of gold with a little bit of brown in it, and that's just giving me just the right level of text or script. Now this time I'm using, instead of cadmium red, I'm using alizarin crimson, which is a little more pink, and I'm going to alter the color of the poinsettia here because that's something you can do. Now again, I'm putting the gesso and the paint, keeping inside the slight outline of the shape of the leaves that the artist has given us, and just using that as a base. So when you look at the two side by side, which painting job do you prefer? Which background do you prefer? Here I'm splattering with the alizarin crimson, and then I splatter with gold. I wanted to introduce some of that alizarin crimson to the background, and then I'm going to pop it into the frame. Oh, that black around it really sets it off. So whether you want to make a home decor piece or a card or an art journal piece, that option is yours. Now if it's a mixed media piece or home decor piece, I give it a coat or two of Minwax polyacrylic varnish. I use the satin version. So there we have the card and the mixed media piece. Very similar, but they are different. Do you have a preference? So this napkin is called Frosted Wreath, and again, it's from Ninny's Napkins, and it's this beautiful blue background. And I struggle when my napkins have a dark background. So I decided here, after peeling off the excess plies, just to glue it on as it was. And to do that, I'm going to put a coat of Mod Podge on the card base, and then use the iron decoupage technique. And you've seen me using that a lot lately because, well, I've just discovered it and I love it. And it makes it so quick and easy. And I do it when I don't want wrinkles. So to put this whole thing on the 6x6, I might end up with wrinkles. It's a little hard to put larger pieces of napkin and not get wrinkles in there. I love the frosted look of this, but it's a little bit muted, and I'm going to deal with that. So here I'm using my mini heat press. You can use a regular iron. Put a piece of parchment over top and just make sure you get good adherence. Now I'm using the emery board to cut off the excess. I just work my way around, and remembering that it's paper, not wood or anything, so you got to be gentle. And then I am sealing it with a coat of my fluid matte medium. This is really important if you plan on doing any overpainting. But be careful, if you reactivate, the napkin gets wet and you could rip it. So you just always have to exercise caution. So to make the white a little bit whiter and brighter, I am just using white acrylic paint that has been thinned and my liner brush, and I am painting this grapevine wreath back in, making it more opaque, giving it a little bit of texture, making it look like it's been fully painted on, tricking the people that look at it. And I'm just working my way. Now, this might have looked a little bit daunting to say, oh my gosh, there's a lot to overpaint. But this is a perfect time to practice your liner brush skills. One of the things I'll say with the liner brush, after you've used it for a while, take the time, clean it up, and start over. It tends to get gunked up a little bit, but you can totally practice your liner skills. And as I work around, hopefully you can see the difference adding this layer of paint does. Could you have left it like it was without overpainting here? Yes, but where's the fun in that? So I go back over some of it and add more. Now you could, I'm just using white acrylic paint, but you could use iridescent medium with the white acrylic paint, and that would give a shimmer and shine to this as well. And when you're doing the grapevine wreath, if you put a line where it doesn't belong, who's going to know? Now for the actual poinsettias, I am using some white gesso, and I am being a little sparing. I'm just whitening and brightening some of those poinsettias. I want them to really stand out. So I'm adding more opaqueness, more brightness, very selectively on the poinsettia. I'm not even covering the entire poinsettia petals or leaves. But again, I'm not going past the outline of the leaves. I'm leaving the shape pretty much intact. Now I use my stylus and I'm these white berries, I'm just adding to that. This makes, again, it's adding a little bit of a texture here because the paint is a little bit thick, and I'm just dotting there. And it's just brightening it up. Now the pine cones and some of the leaves I have left alone, and that's by choice. And again, it's always your choice how much you're going to do. So I'm just adding a little bit more white. It's easy to add more as you go. Assess it, make a judgment, add more. It's a little harder to remove it. I'm just working my way around it. And there you can see the one on the right is my overpainted one, and the other one is just the regular napkin. So it's a little more opaque, a little bit brighter. There's not a whole lot of difference, but I can appreciate what difference there is. Sorry about this. Hang in there. I will come back. I had some technical difficulties, and we're back. Then I decided to add some shimmer and shine using this sparkling glitter glaze. Now the folk art, deco art, all brands typically have some glitter that is embedded into kind of a varnish or glue that dries clear. You can find a product. This one's from Polyvine. And I'm just painting very selectively over the poinsettias, giving them this amazing glittery shine. And the best part is, since the glitter is embedded in the varnish, you don't get it all over the place. So once that's done, I'm edging with black. I didn't like those white edges. Just adding a little bit of black around here. And I thought I was going to be done until I finished the other poinsettia card and mixed media piece. And I decided to use that same stamp, and I'm going to stamp with gold. Remember I said I put the center of the poinsettias, I dot it with the stylus with gold, and this just tied everything together, and oh, I just absolutely loved how that came together. So if you love poinsettias, go to Ninny's Napkins, check out this collection of poinsettias, and start creating home decor piece, cards, what have you. You're only limited by your imagination. Which one do you like best? Let me know in the comment section. Until next time, go get creative.